We are now in the last 5 or 6 questions of this treatise on the theological virtues before we go into the treatise on the cardinal virtues, which will pretty much take us to the end of Secunda Secundae. That's what Secunda Secundae is really about, is the theological virtues, the cardinal virtues, and all the vices and gifts and things that are related to those. And so that's pretty much how you define this segment of the Summa Theologia. And as you know, we're going through a series of sins related to charity, sins against charity, although the last one, which was interesting, was war. And really, Thomas was able to say that war, under some circumstances, is okay, and it's not always a sin against charity. Of course, sometimes it would be. This one in question 41 is on strife. And as you can see in this picture here, strife, in the way Thomas defines it, is typically a physical altercation when your anger gets to the point where you actually attack somebody. And we see this played out all the time on videos of fights being at bars, or people getting angry with each other, or on airplanes and fights breaking out. So this is a pretty practical and commonplace thing we see in our culture today. So it's probably worthwhile to see what St. Thomas Aquinas has to say about it. And so there's only 2 articles here, so this one's going to be pretty quick. And the first one says whether strife is always a sin. And he says, while contention implies a contradiction of words, remember the contentious person, strife denotes a certain contradiction of deeds. Wherefore a gloss is just kind of like a commentary on Galatians 5:20 says that strife are when persons strike one another through anger. So again, like I said, this is going to oftentimes imply that there's some kind of physical altercation or physical aggression. Hence, strife is a kind of private war because it takes place between private persons being declared not by a public authority, but rather by an inordinate will. Now, see, he makes a distinction here, is that a private person, like he mentioned in the question on war, doesn't have the authority to declare war or gather people to fight. And so he apparently says that we really don't, under a lot of circumstances, have the right to just declare war on another person unless you're defending yourself, right? Therefore, strife is always sinful. In fact, it is a mortal sin if the man who attacks another unjustly, for it is not without mortal sin that one inflicts harm on another, even if the deed be done by the hands, I guess, as opposed to a weapon, right? But in him who defends himself, it may be without sin, or it may sometimes involve a venial sin, or sometimes a mortal sin, and this depends on his intention. Okay, intention is very important when it comes to the moral act, and on his manner of defending himself. For if his sole intention be to withstand the injury done to him, and if he defend himself in due moderation, it is no sin, and one cannot say properly that there is strife on his part. But if, on the other hand, his self-defense be inspired by vengeance and hatred, it is always a sin. It is a venial sin if a slight movement of hatred or vengeance obtrude itself, or if he does not much exceed moderation in defending himself. But it is a mortal sin if he makes for his assailant with the fixed intention of killing him or inflicting grievous harm on him. So there's a lot of different degrees and kind of gradations here that Aquinas is talking about. But I think we kind of know generally what is the motivation. Is it hatred? Certainly, if you want to kill somebody, it's going to be strife, and that's going to be a mortal sin. Article 2, whether strife is a daughter of anger. He says strife denotes an antagonism extending to deeds when one man designs to harm another. Now, there are 2 ways in which one man may intend harm to another. In one way, it is as though he intended absolutely the other's hurt, which in this case is the outcome of hatred, for the intention of hatred is directed to the hurt of one's enemy, either openly or secretly. In another way, a man intends to hurt another who knows and withstands his intention. This is what we mean by strife and belongs properly to anger, which is the desire of vengeance. So, okay, the first one he intends absolutely to hurt another's hurt, which in this case is the outcome of hatred. I guess the distinction is the person may not know that you hate them or that you intend evil. You may hate somebody and they don't even know that you hate them. Okay, so even he wishes him to feel the hurt and know that what he suffers is in revenge for what he has done, as may be seen from what has been said above about the passion of anger. Therefore, properly speaking, strife arises from anger, which I think is pretty obvious. Be that that when you're angry, you hit somebody, it's going to be because of anger that you hit them, and that could be sinful depending on your intention and whether it's in due moderation, whether it's in self-defense, or whether it's an attack, and that kind of thing. All right, that is the end of question 41 on strife, and thank you for joining me as we journey through the Summa Theologia. God bless you.